Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
Give me a moment, would you, friend? I've never been on trial for my thoughts before.
Welcome to the Only One Mic podcast. I'm your host, Carl Gerard. And today I'm joined by author, conversationalist, and what I call inspirational speaker, Miss Fatima Oliver. How you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you for having me, Carl.
No problem at all. Thank you for coming on. I was looking forward to this for a while. So, we had a little delay, but listen, we back together. It's good. We can go ahead and rock. So,
Yes.
Your book, I'm going to jump right into it. You know that.
Yeah,
Fatima.
I'm like, dang, Carl.
But
let's just go on over that speed bump real quick and let's get into it.
Listen, just walk with me on this one. Walk with me on this one.
Absolutely.
So your book, the Prescription is in the Dirt, which is out right now on Amazon, digital and paperback. I'm a paperback person myself.
Me too.
I'm old school. I got the iPad and all that stuff, but I like to flip those pages. So
absolutely, that
book is a journey of your life.
Yeah.
Right. And so I like to preface it by saying, like, one of my favorite sayings is life is a beautiful struggle. It's a very beautiful struggle. We're blessed to be here. That's the life. The struggle is a part of being here. So you're amplifying both the beauty and the struggle, I must say. And so I want the listeners to know your journey. I want you to take us on a walk through the journey that led you to the prescription that's in the dirt.
Well, shoot. Okay. I'll try to make it a quick walk.
You take your time. You take your time.
Instead of a nice stroll, but, because there's a lot there in that topic in itself. I would say that, just like a lot of people, I grew up in the hood. I'm just going to call it that because that's what it was to me.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I grew up in the hood. And I was the only girl out of, it was 3 brothers on my mom's side, 2 brothers on my dad's side. So I was the only girl out of 5 brothers. And single mom. I'm sure a lot of people know the struggle. I've been a single mom, so I really understand the struggle now. But just watching my mom try to make ends meet, working 2 jobs, sometimes riding on her bike to go to the second job because she didn't have a car. A lot of times she wasn't at the house. It was a very survival type of setting. And so I grew up rough and tough because if I did it, then my brothers got great pleasure out of making me cry. So I had to be tough. Now that's my Alexa. Alexa just came on in case you heard that.
Yeah, I heard Alexa. Alexa want to chime in on this conversation.
Yes, Alexa is reminding me that it's time for lunch. It's really for the kids. So anyway, a nice little comic relief there. But yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a space where it was rough and tough and it was all about survival. And my mom wasn't there a lot because she had to take care of us and had to put food on the table. And when she came home, she didn't have time for no whining. So it was a very type of no emotions type of setting. Where you just made it. It was really that simple. You went outside in the neighborhood and you made it. In your home, you made it. You figured it out. And there wasn't a lot of time for any type of emotional connection. And so speeding through that space and time, as an 11-year-old, I was, I should go back a little bit. As a 5-year-old, really just through my elementary years, I would say, I encountered physical abuse, sexual abuse, and not a lot of processing time. So, I guess one of your worst epic movies, Envision Precious, but just a little bit smaller.
Oh my God. Wow.
It was just kind of that type of angry, frustrating, setting where your parents learn how to raise you by how they were raised, and not altogether is that the right way, but it's all about survival, and that's how I grew up, and I was determined, I think, to be seen as Fatima and not as one of the kids, and so I excelled a lot. In school, excelled in pretty much a lot of what I've done. I'm very driven. But in that, I never stopped to realize that a lot of the traumas and tragedies that I had as a kid was following alongside me. And so I got to a point where around my 30s, I realized that the way I had been feeling since childhood, this overwhelming sorrow, this overwhelming discontent, just true sadness, I didn't know how to get rid of it. And no matter what I did, go to church, pray, fast, get on the worship team, be an usher board member, do whatever, become the best employee, become an excellent employer. Whatever I did, I could not shake that feeling that had stayed with me since childhood. And so in a nutshell, around my 30s, I realized that I was clinically depressed. It really took me getting some courage and going to the doctor and saying, pretty much, I'm broken and I need somebody to help fix me because I really don't know what's wrong with me. And I've gone years with people telling me, girl, ain't nothing wrong with you. And years of me saying, you know what, maybe there really isn't anything wrong with me and I just need to try harder. And so about my mid-30s, I was in a place where I really wanted to end my life. I really could see myself driving my car through an intersection full speed, not stopping. And that was with, at that time, 3 children and a fiance.
Oh, my God.
I just really wanted my life to end. It was so much pain that I had carried from childhood. And then just, mistakes, horrible decision making. Throughout the years that I just didn't know how to process any of that mess. And so, I wound up on medicine for clinical depression, but it helped me to calm my emotions, these emotions that I didn't even know how to process because I never learned as a child. It helped to calm that, the feeling of sadness, the feeling of anger, the feeling of rage, always feeling like I'm on simmer and I just want to pop off at the mouth, but don't even understand why I'm that mad. It helped to calm that, but it never went away. And so once my body got used to the medicine, took about 10 more years, I was right back in that space. And by then I was in my mid 40s and really just at a place, or early 40s, and really at a place where, again, I wanted to end my life and I seemingly had it all. I had the success that I had really went after, had the income that I really was seeking after, all the things I said, Carl, if I get this, then I'll be better, right? It must be because I didn't have nothing as a kid. So if I get some money and I work my system right, then I'll be better. Or it must be because I don't have the house. So if I get the house, I'll be better. Or it must be because I can't give my kids the PlayStation like my girlfriend can. So once I'm in a position to be able to give them those things, I will feel better.
So it's basically like I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's like you're saying that those things were like to fill a void that was there.
Yeah, but it never did. It never did. And that was the trickery because I always thought it would. And I always thought there was something else. And I had to face the reality that none of those things could fill the void that I felt within myself. And I had to, I'm just going to say it, put on my big girl panties and look at myself in the mirror and say, you need to go get help because whatever you've been doing, it's not working and it's not taking away those feelings. And the medicine, although it helps to medicate the situation, it's just like a Band-Aid, but you're not really getting to the true source of what's going on. And with a wonderful group of, I call it my safe place, a group of women, a group of play brothers and my husband and my family, I was able to get up the courage to go and speak to somebody and truly start my journey of what I consider soul healing. And that is when, in my viewpoint, is when your mind, your body, your emotions, and your faith come in alignment and you actually stop and unbusy yourself enough to pay attention. And so I went through about, I would say it was about a 10-month period when I really began to see some change. But I would say 10 months to a year and a half of introspectiveness and really, really, really looking inside, a lot of times having to go back to the situations that happened in my childhood and really dissect what happened, why did it happen, was I at fault? accepting that I was not at fault with a lot of the things, and making a conscious decision to release the pain from inside me and let it go, because it was not my responsibility to hold on to it.
Now, you were saying that both, I know reading in your bio that both you and your brother was abused. Was he able to kind of process the things that was going on with him, and did his life take a different direction, or was he able to seek that self-healing as well?
Yeah. So my brother passed away. I think he was like 30. He was about 33 when he passed away.
I'm sorry.
And I like to think that he found some peace within himself. I know that he had changed his lifestyle dramatically and had really began to lean into his Christian walk. I mean, my brother back in the day was, street pharmacist all day long.
Yeah, I got you.
Really trying to live a rough life. It was like somebody that wasn't rough trying to live a rough life. And had went to prison a couple of times, and he wound up really, really changing his life to where we were able to do ministry together, way back then. So that was about 15 years ago. And so I'd like to think that he found some resolve, but in regards to talking about those specific things, we never had a conversation. Now, I would say that I didn't share that at 2 years old, I had gotten burned on 25% of my body. And so it was an accident, water heater accident, that the water was spouting out all hot water. And he actually was assigned to make the bath water for me. He's nothing but 5 years old, and turned the water on and it was all hot. Mm-hmm. And so clearly I survived, but I had scars, and my feet are completely disfigured. Some places on my legs are disfigured, and I've had to live with that, throughout. And right. So he always felt guilty for that. And that is one thing that we would talk about often, of him wanting so badly to get me a skin graft, pay for me to have another surgery to repair my feet and my legs. And so that is one thing. I talk a bit about it in my book, about just how much guilt he felt over that incident, where I felt no type of error in judgment in his view whatsoever. But it linked us. It connected us in this sad way. It was the pain that linked us and made us closer than most of my brothers. And I was with most of my brothers. I think it had to do with the fact that he felt so guilty for that happening to me, and us being able to share in that pain.
So he felt a little bit more overprotective of you because of that particular situation.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. He was like ridiculous protection. He was my older brother, and it was just ridiculous. And so, I'm pretty sure that played a part in it. But all of those things of me just walking through a lot of tragedy and a lot of trauma at a young age, and not having anyone to sit with me and help me to process what had happened. What did you just survive? But growing up in a space and in a culture where you didn't talk about it, you just survived it and you moved on. And, it's nothing any different than a lot of families. That's kind of like an ancestral background of, we just got to survive. And, unfortunately, I fell along those lines of a family that never sat down and said, this happened to you. I'm sorry this happened to you. Let's work together to help you heal. Ain't nobody talking like that.
And even in today, it's like, I think that especially in the Black community, mental health is something that we do not take seriously at all. And we all have some type of PTSD. Like, I look at like a lot of the shootings that take place in all of these major cities. And I'm quite sure you're in Ohio, right? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but not born here. I was born in Vegas.
You was born in Vegas. So Vegas, just the same.
Yeah.
And all of these major cities that deal with these gang activity and things of that nature, a lot of people in the community have PTSD because of those things. Yeah. And that goes unaddressed for years. You may not be directly involved in gang activity or involved with crime or violence, but just to be around it is a form of PTSD. So the fact that you were able to acknowledge that, it might have took you some time, but you did do it. And that's definitely something that's good. Now, how, did this shape your faith? Like, I know you were struggling at first
Yeah.
And after you kind of, freed up your mental space and you were able to revisit that, how did that make an impact on you?
I would say, in actuality, me revisiting those times in my life, and it was not easy, because who wants to look back at their trauma, a horrible situation? Who wants to go back and revisit that inside yourself and open yourself up to feeling the pain or the fear that you felt at that time? So it definitely was a baby step approach, and I learned different methods to be able to walk through that process in a healthy way. It definitely helped me to get closer to God. I feel that before I had made it to this place where I could have a soul healing journey, I was trying so hard to connect to God, but there was always this thing in between us. And He loved me anyway, and I've had blessings, and I know that God, it was nothing but God. But I just feel like my intimacy with God was it was hindered, because I couldn't get past this anger that I had in me. I couldn't get past this rage or this sorrow, this agony that I had inside of me. I didn't know what it was. And so it was a distraction. By me being able to look at it and actually say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to revisit this situation that happened in my life. I'm going to write about how it made me feel and how it damaged my life, and just really, really look at my errors because of that situation, different decisions that I've made that kind of link to my sexual abuse or physical abuse, or how I don't, trust men, or how I would get so defensive when somebody would try to talk to me. All those things I'm looking at, and I'm journaling it to try to process it as a form of processing. I really, truly felt God's intervention, and I really believe that it became a form of worship, because I was I was living my honesty, like I was living the truth of what happened to me. I wasn't pretending that it didn't happen, but I wasn't trying to get I was no longer trying to be stuck in that space. I was trying to move through it, but I knew that I needed God's hand to help guide me, but I wasn't pretending it didn't happen. And I think a lot of us get in this space where, and like you said, from the neighborhood or the Black culture, where if we show sadness or disappointment about something, we're looked at as a chump or weak, instead of being able, we rarely hear people say it's okay to cry, or it's okay that hurt you in that way. I understand that hurt you, and it's okay to process that hurt. We hear, man, get over that, brush that off your shoulders. You got, you wear your feelings on your sleeve. We hear all these other things that make us feel like in our own space, when we are feeling those emotions and they're trying to come up, we tell ourselves, stop that. No, Fatima, toughen up, Fatima. You tougher than that. Don't feel that. And so the feelings never come out. They stay with us. And so then we're popping off at the person at the food, at the restaurant. We have a chip on our shoulder everywhere we go. We think that we're misunderstood, but everybody feel like we are, stay away from us, because every time we come around, there's a problem. All this comes from those feelings that we're suppressing. And I just believe that walking through this process of every single thing that happened in my life, that were huge things that were stopping me from moving forward, by looking at every single one of those things and really analyzing them to the point where I'm saying, this is not your fault, Fatima. Okay, you hold accountability here. Now, what are you going to do about it? Walking through those different situations helped me to free myself from all that drama and allow room for God to really, truly speak to me and tell me and shape me into the person He wanted me to be, but also to open me up to be able to see somebody else's hurt and to help them, just like, I was able to work and help myself.
The book is The Prescription is in the Dirt, and it's available on Amazon, paperback and digital. Now, let's talk about soul healing. You had 3 key principles that you have for soul healing. Now, you said that everyone needs a safe place to fall. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So when I was speaking about my safe place, I mean, some place where you can truly be your raw, dirty, just pissed off self.
The punch the wall moment, huh?
I mean, seriously, because sometimes that's how you feel, right? Sometimes you just need to get it out. And a lot of times we feel like we got to put on a front in front of people. We can't just express it. Or we're afraid that if we say how we really feel, the dark stuff that we're feeling, that folks are going to think we're crazy. A lot of times you just need to say it. Doesn't mean that you want to go do it, but you got to express it. And your safe place is a place where you can do that, where you can freak out in the love zone. In other words, the folks aren't like, oh my God, they tripping, let me call the police on them, you know. Right. But they're like, Fatima, okay, I know you want to go slash the tires. And honestly, they deserve their tires to be slashed. Okay, what they did to you was wrong. But let's sit down. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about how this is going to benefit you in the end. Let's process this together. Or it's let me just hold your hand, or let me pray with you. Mm-hmm. Let me make you laugh. Let me do something to help you walk through this situation. That's a safe place. They come in your house when you have been through the worst and you haven't showered. You look a hot mess. Okay. Wow. Yeah. And they come in and help you clean your house. That's your safe place. Mm. And so sometimes that safe place will not be the chicks that you go hang out with, that you go get your nails done with, or you go to the club with. Sometimes it's not the dudes that's at the barbershop. Sometimes it is the barbershop, but you need to be able to determine where that space is where you can be your most vulnerable and not be judged, but listen to.
And sometimes that could even be a person that is totally removed from your circle, because when you have them as family, and, I remember my uncle once told me, he said, family wants to hurt for you. So sometimes it's better not to go to family with certain situations and have somebody outside of that circle who can be totally, not for you or against you, but just want to listen,
Yeah. They have no dog in the fight.
No dog in the fight at all.
They have no dog in the fight. So, and for me, my husband, I love him, but there are some things that I talked about that he didn't have any type of understanding about. So I could see his eyes get glossy-eyed, like, I want to support you, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Right. And so with me, that meant that I stuck with the therapist. And so my therapist would be a part of my safe place, not just my go-to person, but she's a part of that, so that there are things that I really need to talk about that my husband may not be able to relate to because he didn't grow up like I grew up. Then I can go to her and talk about it, and she don't have no dog in the fight. She's just there to support me. So sometimes it's got to be a therapist or a counselor or a life coach.
Yeah. Okay. You also say that emotions are meant to be acknowledged and not ignored.
Yeah. So, and we talked about that a little bit earlier, Carl, as far as being brought up with the notion of, if we show emotion beyond being mad, that we're weak. And so a lot of times in our community, we glamorize and hype up drama and anger. We view that as passion. But what about when the person is broken on the inside and all they can do is cry? Somebody needs some place to be able to go to do that too, and need to know that it's okay to feel that emotion. I like to give the analogy that we have a funnel of where our emotions come from. Emotion, meaning the good emotion, the bad emotion, however way you want to reference it, emotion. So if we get used to cutting off the negative emotion, whenever we're feeling sad, whenever we're feeling disappointed or humiliated, those type of feelings, embarrassed, we cut those off because we don't want to feel those. So we never let those out. We never say, wow, I really felt embarrassed. Gosh, that sucked. We never feel it. Then think about how much joy you're unable to feel too, because you're suppressing that. The funnel is just for emotion. It's not a funnel for good emotion and a funnel for bad emotion. It's all emotion. So if you're stopping yourself from feeling the negative stuff, you are also hindering yourself from truly enjoying the positive stuff that happens in your life. You got to be willing to allow yourself to feel whatever the heck it is you're feeling. Now, I don't mean sit there forever. But I do mean I use imagery of the water hitting the ocean, hitting the rocks on the beach. So for me, when I'm upset, I allow myself the time, like the water hitting the waves, crushing up against the rocks on the beach, and I'll allow it to rush over me and just consume me. Whatever that feeling is, sadness. If I need to cry, if I'm angry and I want to punch something, then I allow it to flow all over me, and then allow it to recede back into the ocean, that wave to recede back into the ocean. And that's how I view my emotion. That gives me a chance to feel to its fullest extent, whatever it is that I need to feel, but not sit in it, knowing that it's got to go back into the ocean. I got to get up from here. I got to figure out a solution. I got to release it. I got to let it go. I can't let this anger, this rage, this grief consume me and be with me in every situation that I face in my life, or it begins to own me. But you have to give yourself the opportunity to feel whatever the heck it is that you need to feel.
Good stuff. And it says that a victim mentality must change to a victor mentality.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we all know somebody who is like, woe is me. And it's like, life would never turn out for me any better than what it is because of yada, 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 yada. A part of a soul healing journey is facing the truth about yourself. And a lot of us get stuck in that self-victimization. There's a point where we have to own our mess, that we have to own our decisions, that yes, a lot of horrible things may have happened to us, and it doesn't negate any of that those horrible things happen. But at some point, we have to take control over our lives and choose to change the narrative of our story. So our story could have been, I was a rape victim. I was my husband beat me. Or my girl, she took all my money and she dogged me and embarrassed me and clowned me. And instead of allowing that situation to change you to a place where you say, now I'm not going to even entertain nobody. I'm not going to date anymore. I'm not going to do any of this because of this one thing that happened to me 20 years ago. At some point, you have to get to a place where you say, you know what? She was just a buster. She was just, a chicken head or whatever. She wasn't the right one for me. My lesson in it is I'm going to choose better. I'm going to walk more cautiously, right? But I'm not going to allow it to close my heart up from love. I'm not going to allow it to do that to me. Or, yes, I was a victim, but I was a victim of abuse. I was a victim of sexual abuse. It did happen. But what I'm going to do is allow that pain to help me to help somebody else. Now I can help those who have gone through similar situations, who maybe are younger than me, and I can become a mentor to them and tell them about my story. Or I can write a book about it. Or, I can find a ministry that helps promote survivors. Just do something to turn that pain into purpose instead of allowing it to consume you and be an excuse for not making your dreams come true. I think we all have the capability of being that person. I know I have, because I was a victim of so many things. For a long time, I allowed it to stop me from trying to be greater. And I use it as an excuse. Well, these things happen to me, so I don't have to push myself because I'm not meant to be anything anyway. And I really had to check myself through my soul healing journey and say, that ain't true. That's not what God says about me. I need to step up. My life sucks right now because I'm making it suck. So I need to change that,
right.
And
then too, is like when we speak about faith, because I'm a person of faith. I believe in God and all. And, you can't allow the devil to get in that one crack in you.
Yeah.
And then make that crack into a big hole. And that's where, once he gets in and starts picking with your mentality and things like that. And just like you said, you'll start getting so down on yourself that you won't be yourself. You'll be that situation you were in. You're no longer representing yourself. You're no longer, you have become your problem. You're identified by your problem. And that's the one thing that none of us wants to be like. Even when I speak to you, or if I speak to any other authors or anybody who went through similar situations, I always tell them in the height of the conversation is, I want to know about you. I want to speak to you, not to your situation, so that way you can express to the world who you are, who Fatima is, not Fatima that I was abused, not Fatima I grew up hard, not Fatima who was burned as a child. It's just the fact that we want to know who you are. And then that was the journey. That's why I always say, tell me about your journey. Your journey didn't begin and end with your problems. So I want to know you. So that's we're on the same page with that one, Fatima. I know about it. I'm feeling everything you're saying. And also in that piece there, I also took when you were talking about the people around you, if you can't change the people around you, then you change the people around you. That's how it works, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we shouldn't be, I think that's another issue, is that we often want to change the people around us, but in the way of meaning conform to my ways. And just like we have the right to change and be who we want to be, they have the right to be whoever they want to be. So to your point, if you don't like who they are, then you need to nicely bow out gracefully and find you a new set of people who are going to be able to support and promote whatever it is that you want to do in your life. Not stay around those same people, but thinking that you're going to be able to control their behavior. That's unrealistic. The only people that you have the ability to control is yourself. And that's the only person that God holds you accountable for.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's like, check yourself. Don't try to point the finger at the other people. It's like, who's the common denominator and why you keep coming around? Find a new set of people.
Exactly.
I mean, really,
exactly.
Really.
Exactly. When I see God, it's not going to be holding your hand. So I gotta do this thing for myself.
Absolutely.
So that's a lot. So I want to circle back to one more thing, because I don't want to hold you too long, because I know you have some things you got to do.
That's
so
okay.
Let's circle back to your husband. Now, when you were able to sit down and speak to him openly about the things that happened in your past, how did he take that? How did he receive that? And, you know, what was that like? I don't want you to get too personal, because that's a personal conversation,
okay.
But, you know, just walk us on how that conversation went.
Yeah. So anybody that I've dated, I've told the story. It has just been from a victim mentality standpoint. So it was, this happened to me and they hurt me and yada, yada, yada. Right. When I shared with him, I was really at a place where I truly thought I was losing my mind. So he he knew, as far as a checklist of things that I had been through, the same checklist I would share with anybody. But as far as the emotional trauma, that was completely mind blowing to him. I think it was difficult for him to take in how broken I was on the inside, because on the outside, and as far as functionally, I seem to be functioning fine. So when I'm coming in the room and saying, I really feel like I'm losing my mind, I really feel like I need to go speak to somebody, it was a shocker for him that I felt so broken. And so he definitely was like, well, you need to go speak to somebody.
You need to speak to somebody quick.
Right. And so, you know, he's a very traditional guy who is very private, but he understood that it was important for me that I sought help. And I'm very grateful that he would actually, when I would go to my visits and come back from my therapy visits early on, when I was really trying to figure out why am I having all this anxiety? Why am I feeling like I want to cry at the drop of the hat? Like I feel like I'm losing my mind. He would, every time I had my visit, he would say, what did they say? What did they say? You know, he wanted to know.
How's this is going to help us?
Right. And so I really thought that was awesome, because again, he's not the traditional, he's not the new age, right? Where it's like, therapy is popular, you know, he's just not that guy. And so, but I think through what I have gone through and him seeing me come out, freer, and he's seen me change. He's seen some development changes. He's seen me grow from what I was 2 years ago to what I am today. There is no room for doubt that the method that I took worked for me. And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that he was able to, make himself uncomfortable, to ask me questions about my needs and my therapy. And I think that's the point of a safe place, right? He's not able to have certain conversations with me, even though he'll try. It's just, I see that he can't relate. So I'm the one that's saying, he ain't the right one for that conversation, right? That's all right. But the point is that he's willing to be uncomfortable for me. And that's what a safe place is. There are people who may feel uncomfortable with the content, but they're willing to be uncomfortable to help support you. Right. And so he's definitely one of those people. And I think because of that, and other key people that were in my life that were willing to listen to me, it helped me to say, you know what, I'm going to be okay. It's okay for me to go and sit and talk to this stranger about my stuff, right? It's okay for me to open up and start participating in my healing and any other unconventional methods that I took to find healing for myself. He was like, okay, never heard of that, but okay, if that's what you want to do, right? And even with me writing my book, and even with me becoming a transformational, like you said, an inspirational speaker, and a consultant, and now having my own clients that I'm helping to walk through the process and the steps that I walk through, in all the ventures that I've grown to be a part of because of where I started, because of my brokenness, right. The doors that have opened up to me and that I've been able to walk through and feel fulfilled in. He's been right there supporting me. So regardless of him being more traditional and more old school and more, I prefer to talk at the barbershop than to go and sit on somebody's couch. Regardless of our differences in the way that we view mental health, he was still able to figure out a way to support me. And that is priceless. And so not all the time, those people in your support, your safe place are going to be people that necessarily believe everything that you believe, but it doesn't mean that they don't have anything to offer to support you and help build you up. So I really think open-mindedness needs to be there, and just the ability to hear wisdom when it's being spoken to you, and to do whatever you feel in your heart that your faith is telling you to do to get the help that you need.
Wonderful. Now I'm going to circle back one more time to faith.
Sure. And
how big a role did forgiveness play in all of this? Were you able to forgive those that wronged you?
Yeah, so I don't know if I knew in the beginning. I don't think I did. I was all about woe is me, right? I was still moving in I would say, a self-victimized space because I was caught up on what happened to me. And as I walked through my healing journey, really saying, this situation happened to me, this is how it made me feel, this is how it damaged me, and I can see the way I've made decisions because of that situation, who was at fault, and having to recognize the people that may have been at fault where I didn't have any blame. And then what would I have wanted to have happen differently, being able to look at that situation. And then now what? Now what I'm going to do with all that information? Right. I had to, based on the situation, and when I was able to really strategically write out and process those stages of my pain, there came a point where I had to say, Fatima, now what you going to do? And with God being my anchor through every single step of that process I just outlined, there was a place where I felt conviction to try to at least understand their side. It doesn't mean that it was okay, but understand their mind space. In other words, my mom grew up in a space and time where, number one, emotions wasn't talked about. Number two, that sometimes abuse happened and the people did not stand by you, and they never talked about it. And so when it came to me, we didn't talk about it, and the emotional aspect wasn't adhered to, wasn't even talked about. So I felt jilted. But when I look back at how she grew up, it was like God was saying, Fatima, look at how she grew up. Now what you going to do with that knowledge? And I had to open up myself to forgiving the fact that she was ignorant to how to handle this type of situation, and to be forgiving towards my father, who was not in my life, not because he didn't want to be, but because he was a drug addict and his drug was more important than me. That's just the truth. But he was an addict. And so not just looking at how I was hurt, but looking at the whole situation as much as I can. And then from that context, being able to be open to forgiveness. Now, forgiveness to me is ever evolving. And when I say that, I mean that one part I said, okay, I forgive my mom for this because she didn't know how to handle it. And then as I continued to process my mess, I would continue to relive like PTSD type of situations and say, I didn't even realize that happened to me. Yeah, that did happen to me. Now I'm angry all over again. Now I got to forgive her for that. Right?
Yeah.
So, so it's like, I don't feel that forgiveness is like just a stamp and you're like, it's done with. I really believe that as those emotions come up and reveals those situations that happened in your life, that's another opportunity to look at it for what it was, along with how it impacted you, and then make a conscious decision that, God, I'm able to forgive that, or be real, God, I ain't there yet. I need you to help me because I'm not there yet. And I need you to help soften my heart and help me to understand and show compassion and just be able to relate on the place of not they were my parent, but they were a woman too. And I've met other women in this situation and they made similar decisions that I thought was crazy, but this was why. So why would her making the decisions be any different? Because she was my mama? Help me to look at her as a woman. Like, help me to do whatever I need to do inside of me to be able to understand why the decisions were made. I really believe that understanding can help with forgiveness. When we don't understand, I think it gives us an opportunity to stay bitter and to just live in that space of unforgiveness because it can in some sense give us power. I really think understanding can bring a lot of reconciliation. And a lot of us have to get to a place where we're willing to have those tough conversations to understand. And I actually teach on that, having about the fear of confrontation, being able to have the conversation, be able to know the steps to have a tough conversation and give your pain a voice so that you can come to some sort of understanding, at least understanding their viewpoint, or at least them understanding yours, but somebody gonna understand.
Right. You got to put it out there for somebody to get it.
You got to put it out there. Right. But yeah, so forgiveness is huge. I don't think that you can heal without opening up yourself to forgiveness. And actually, my dad had never been in my life. He hadn't been, I didn't have a relationship with my dad until my 40s because of the drugs. And then once he got off the drugs, he had to change his mindset. His mind was still on them drugs. Yeah. So he would say stupid stuff and just crazy, cruel, ignorant stuff. And so I had to take him out of my life. And when I started walking through this process, when I thought it was all about the sexual abuse, I wound up realizing that I had to deal with my dad. Right. And in that process of playing over the things that I had already replayed in my head a million times, but this time actually breaking them down. When he didn't come to my graduation, how did it make me feel? How did it damage me? Now, how do I look at him? Or how do I look at father and daughter relationships? When he was at my wedding and he looked like a crackhead and I didn't want him to walk me down the aisle. Right. How did that make me feel? How did it damage me? How did it impact our relationship? Every single thing. But as I got towards the end, I always had that ending question, Fatima, now what? And so in that now what, I took it to God. And in that process of taking it to God, he helped me get the courage to have that uncomfortable conversation. And when I went, I just wanted to have the conversation with an open mind. I didn't know if I would be able to forgive him or not, but I wanted to have my heart open to forgiveness. Right. And so in that space, I said, God, make my heart open to forgiveness. Okay. I don't know what's going to happen in this conversation, but at least help me be open to it. And as we talked, I realized that there was so much about him that I didn't know. And it really, really opened up this dialogue that it was like two grown people, for real grown people talking. And I felt God's presence in the room. It was just crazy. Like I never had a conversation.
No, that's not
like
crazy.
That
that's God.
Yeah, right. It was like, I'm watching him work, right? And I'm just like, I had all these thoughts and all these ideas and all these hesitations, but I just said, God, I just want you to show up and help me to be open to forgiveness. And so once we ended that conversation, we had reconciled a lot of those things. It didn't take them away, but we were open to furthering our relationship. And I'm grateful to be able to say that we've been able to have Christmas together, and he's been able to meet his grandchildren. He had never met them. They're his only grandchildren. He was here a couple weeks ago, and he's just really forming a beautiful bond with my family and with me. And I, for the first time, feel comfortable calling him dad. I would never call him dad because I was like, you ain't my daddy. You dad. Yeah. But it's just a testament to what I'm trying to bring home is that doing the work, like really opening up yourself when you feel like your life is falling apart, when you feel like how I did, I'm having all this anxiety. I don't know where it's stemming from. I'm on this medicine, but I don't know where it's stemming from. And I just feel like if I don't take the medicine, I'm losing my mind, but I don't understand why I'm losing my mind. Just all that is a state of confusion.
Right.
If you feel like you're living in a space of confusion, I really would evoke you to consider soul healing, meaning stopping, unbusying yourself enough to get back connected with your faith, whatever your faith is, to look at how your body is reacting. If you are losing sleep, if you have this anxiety, something ain't right, something you need to look at. Not just the medication, but what is going on with you. Are you eating well? You can't even function. You can't even think. Okay, there's a problem. If you're emotionally off the wall, like anybody says something to you and you're snapping, and then you're like, you need to apologize all the time because you keep tripping on everybody.
Right.
Emotionally, you jacked up. Physically, you jacked up. Spiritually, you jacked up. It's important that you come together and look at those things and say, God, help me to figure this out. And then there's a simple exercise that you really can do once he starts showing you stuff. And you probably already know what it is. Stuff that is from your past that you have yet to get over. It could be a bad breakup. It could be left at the altar. It could be somebody pulled out 2 months before the wedding. That happened to me. That was a true story. That happened to me.
Wow.
It could be any type of stuff, right? It could be a death of a child. I've been there too. So all types of situations, you take the situation and you write specifically who the person was or what the event was, what happened, what was the situation, how did it make you feel? You probably kind of sort of already know how it makes you feel, but write it down. How did it make you feel? Not just mad and sad, but humiliated, empty on the inside. I felt like I wanted to kill myself. What did it make you feel like? And then the damage. I haven't been able to think right since. I haven't been able to communicate with this person since. I don't pick up their calls when they call me. I go out of the room when I go into the office and they come into the room, I walk out. How has it damaged you? And who was at fault? If you played a part, own your mess.
Right.
Own your mess. If it was all them, then put it on all them. And then what would you have liked to have happened differently? This part is not to give you a Disneyland ending. It's to say, now that I know better, I would do better. And even if it's, if I was a kid, I wish I would have spoke up earlier about what was happening to me. You can't change that. But as an adult, now you know that you were a kid and kids don't respond that way. So let it go. Maybe you would let it go. Maybe you would have let it go sooner because of the fact that you held no ownership. That's what I mean by what would you have done different.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And
now you take it to your faith, right?
Yeah. It goes back. Yeah. All goes back to that.
Go ahead.
So listen.
Yeah.
One final question. Oh, you're breaking up a little bit. Can you hear me?
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. One last question. Yeah, because you were kind of going in and out. Now, what would the Fatima today say to young Fatima if you could go back and, talk to your younger self, going through all of those issues that you were going through? What would you say?
I would go back to my 11-year-old self because I did, and I would apologize. I have 11-year-old me, my life, and that was when sexual abuse happened. And I would apologize and let my 11-year-old self know that you are worthy to be stood up for. You do matter. You are loved and you are important. All those things that I wish that someone would have shared with me. And I would tell my 11-year-old self, because I did, that moving forward, no one will ever disrespect her again by any means necessary. And so that allowed me, that opened up a door for me to cut some folks out of my life, but it was the best decision that I made because it was to protect that 11-year-old girl.
Wonderful. So, like I was saying, the book is called The Prescription is in the Dirt. And I thank you once again for your time, Fatima. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get ready to sign off. And I want you to let the people know where they can reach you at.
Yeah, so you can reach me on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Totally look me up, Fatima C. Oliver. But I also have a website. It is FatimaC.com. That is FatimaC.com. Totally come look for me. I'm even on YouTube.
Wonderful. Okay, and the Only One Mic podcast is available on all major platforms that you stream your podcast on. Please don't forget to rate the show and subscribe. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter at The Only One Mic P1 and Facebook at The Only One Mic Podcast, and email us for this conversation or any other that we have, theonlyonemic00@gmail.com. Life is a beautiful struggle. Showing beauty and struggle, both together. Miss Fatima C. Oliver, I thank you totally for being a part of this show.
My pleasure.
Please don't be a stranger.
No,
please don't be a stranger. Do you have any other things that you're going to be working on? Any new books or anything?
I am working on a new book right now. It's called I Said What I Said. So that'll be interesting.
I said what I said. All right, sounds interesting. You definitely got to come back on to talk about that one too, okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Fatima. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody for listening. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even the dull and the ignorant, because they too have their story to tell. Thank you for listening to the One Mic Podcast, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.